Hi everyone, this is Abhishek Agarwal from A2 Talks. Today we are going to talk about data classification. If you are new to my channel, please like, share and subscribe my channel. Also, please follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter. So our today's topic is data classification. Before understanding the data classification, we have to understand what is data. So what is data means whatever we are storing in our computer system, that is our data. And how we get that data? Only two ways are there to get that data. Either we generate the data or we collect the data. Like for a loan, we are collecting the data from the user. Sometimes we are generating the data, our calculations, our storage. Then we are like I'm creating the video, I'm generating my own data. So now to store this data, there are various regulations which will impact your how you will store that data and how you will protect that data. So we are going to discuss that how you can secure the data, how you can secure the privacy, how you can going to secure the data by using the data classifications, and how our identity and access management can help into this. There are two types of data classification. One is for government organizations, another one is for private organizations. We are going to discuss today both the type of data classification. So let's talk about the first one. First one is the data classification for government organizations. So it has four classifications. First, top secret. Second, secret. Third, confidential. Fourth, unclassified. What they do in this? What is the meaning of top secret? Top secret means if the data is leaked, it will provide the grave damage to the national security. The sensitive, if the data is revealed, it will provide the serious damage to the national security. The third one is confidential. If the confidential data is revealed, it will have the damage not similar to like it will have a grave damage to the national security, but it will have the damage to the security. Last one is unclassified. In unclassified, we have the data which is not having any kind of damage to the national security. Similar to the government classification scheme, we have the private sector classification scheme, which is our business classification. The business classification also have the four classifications. First, confidential, which may have the exceptional grave to the business, or we may have to shut down our business if the data is revealed or the data is leaked. The second classification is private. In the private classification, we have the sensitive data, and if the data is revealed or data is leaked or compromised, we may have to get the penalties and we may lose our reputation as well. The third one is the sensitive, which can create the damage to the business, but it is not that much which is having like as the private and the confidential. And the fourth one is public. There is no damage if we are having the public data which is getting revealed to the market. Even in the business classification, it is not similar to the government classification. In the public classification, the business go and publish the data on the public web servers and provide the data to the business users. Now, I am going to talk about the example of this both classifications scheme, so you will be able to understand it. What is the each and every classification have the example, and what is the difference between government classification scheme and the business classification scheme. Let's talk about government classification scheme first. So as we have discussed, the first and topmost classification is top secret. In the top secret, if the data is revealed, it can have the grave damage to the national security. So what kind of data it is? It will be it could be a weapon blueprint, war plan, espionage data, or country intelligence data. It might be your encryption data which your national security companies are using it. So you may have the data which if it is breached, then you may have the grave damage to the national security that you classify as top secret. The second classification in government classification scheme is secret. So what are the examples of it? It is a troop plan, deployment plan, and the plan which is not part of the top secret, or there are some plans which are still part of the top secret but they are part of the secret as well. So the government organizations use the clearance to provide the access to the data. So if someone is having lower level of clearance but still he need to know about the plan, there will be a sub information that will be given into the secret clearance. So The war plan, which is having higher clearance, that will be part of the top secret, and there will be a lower subset of the data that will be part of the secret clearance. Now, what is the clearance? To understand the levels and clearance, I have prepared a separate slide in the same video. I am going to discuss it after this slide. The next one is confidential. The confidential can provide the damage, but it cannot provide the grave damage kind of, or the serious damage to the national security. What are the examples? Like your intelligence report, your operational data, your battle data, your mobilization plan. So suppose, for example, your army troops are doing mobilization from one place to another place in an unarmed condition, and that information is revealed. People may have the advantage for that. So it cannot create the grave damage to the country where the national security will get compromised, but definitely the damage what will happen, the country don't want that. So we need to classify these data, and we need to create the security profile for this data, and we need to provide the appropriate budget and security controls to those systems so we can secure them from the data breaches. The last one is unclassified. Unclassified means, it does not mean it is unclassified then it is publicly available, but it can be available based on the request. So if someone can request it, it can be available. It also some data which does not need particular classification, or some data which is declassified. Like if we will see Caesar cipher. Caesar cipher was an encryption algorithm first used to encrypt the data. Now it is publicly available. Now there is no classification needed for this kind of data. Why? Because it is breached. So it is not required to classify. So we can publicly provide it. If someone wants the request, we can provide it. So for example, this was the example that what can be the data which will be classified, but later on the data life is over and now it is declassified. Now let's talk about the private sector classification scheme. In private sector classification scheme, the top most secure classification is confidential. If the confidential data is exposed or it is breached, it can create the grave damage to the business. For example, our proprietary information, our trade secrets, our source code, or anything which provides us competitive edge against the market. For example, Domino's or Pizza Hut, they have their own sauce, they have their own way to build the pizza. Now, if this is their trade secret which is giving them competitive edge against the market, so if this information is revealed and everyone will get their formula, everyone can make the pizza like them and they cannot have competitive edge into the market. So the trade secret, the source code, the proprietary information, or any information which is giving you competitive edge against the market, that should be classified as confidential and it should be provided into this category. The next one is private, which can cause the serious damage. And as I also said that if you will not have the data secure, which comes under the private classification, you may have the penalties from the government, as well as you will lose the reputation as well. So what kind of data comes under it? First is PII, personal identifiable information, PHI, personal health information, financial data, employee data, and the payroll data, and the other data which is similar to that. If this kind of data is exposed and not secured, you may have penalties as well as you will lose the reputation. For example, you are storing the credit card information of the users who are doing payment on your website. Suppose you will lose this data. First, you are under PCI DSS, you will lose your certification. You will not be able to store the credit card information any further. Another one is, if you will lose this, no one will trust you. No one will trust your business because your business lost the reputation. You already lost thousands of millions people's credit card information. You may lose it again because you have not secured it properly. So people will not do business with you. Next one is sensitive. In the sensitive, the networking diagram, the IP address, the software information, the version information, this kind of information comes under the sensitive. If this is revealed, it can create the damage to your organization, because the hackers who are always looking for your network information, they want to map their network similar to your network. If they know what is your network, where are your Palo Alto firewall or where are your Cisco firewalls, what ports are open, what type of data is allowed, what versions you are using, what software and software versions you are using. They may have, they may know what vulnerabilities those systems have, and they can send the payload, and you may be compromised. And due to this compromise, what is secure into the confidential or in the private classification servers, the data that may also get compromised. Next one is public. So the public information does not have any damage, and it is also not similar to like a government classification where in unclassified you have seen that data was available on request, but here it is not like that. In private sector, the public data, the business go and advertise it. For example, the website data, where we create our website and we tell the public that this is my business. Our job posting, our advertisement, our information that we make public, that comes under this category. As in government classification scheme, when we were discussing, we talked about labels and the clearance. And I promised that in the further slide I am going to explain this. So what is the labels and what are the clearance? So first you need to remember one thing. Objects need labels, subject need clearance. One more time. Objects need labels and subjects need clearance. Now what does it mean? Object need label. That means your data, your files, that are objects and they need labels. What are the labels? Top secret, secret, confidential, unclassified. What are the clearance? So based on the clearance label, based on the trust on the person, you assign the clearance label to that person, and based on that clearance, that person get the access to the objects or to the labels. Now, as high you have the clearance, as high you will have the background check. You may be asking this, that in my organization they are not doing this because the labels and clearance used into the MAC system, which is mandatory access control, which business does not use. This is used by army. Business does not use it. Business use RBAC. Business uses ABAC. Business do not use MAC. Business uses mandatory access control. That's why we discussed about labels and clearance in government classification scheme. We have not talked about this in the private sector. So when we talk about labels and when we say top secret, it is not like that someone belongs to nuclear department and he need the higher level of clearance like top secret, then he will get information to armed forces as well or to Navy and Air Force as well. No, he will not get it. When we will do top secret labels, we will make like that: top secret hyphen nuclear, top secret hyphen submarine hyphen XYZ, whatever you want to divide it. And based on your trust, based on your background checks, your clearance and your position and requirement, your clearance level will be extended and you will get access to the data. Some people might be having the question that why we are discussing data classification under the identity and access management. If you think identity and access management means resetting the password or assigning the role and removing the role, then you will not be able to understand this, because that is a very basic level of information. That is a very basic level of understanding. Identity and access management have the RBAC. Identity and access management has the ABAC. We have the SODs. We have the password policies. So we can define how people will get access to a top secret system or a secret system, because we have mandatory access control as well. And if it comes to the business, we can implement RBAC. We can define the risk score to each and every entitlement. If something belongs to confidential, I can assign the risk score to 300, which is, I may say, this is my high score. And if something belongs to like private or something belongs to sensitive, I may assign it 200 or 100 or 10. So I can divide the risk scores, I can create the security profiles, and I can provide the way to get the access to those systems. So what is the purpose of data classification by compliance and standards? You may not prioritize this depends on your business requirements, but there are some standards which enforce you to follow the classification schemes. Some are given below, which is NIST, ISO, HIPAA, PCI DSS, GDPR, they enforce you and they have huge penalty as well. If we will talk about GDPR, they have penalty 4% of your global timesheet. The GDPR is available in the EU, and it does not mean that they will calculate your balance sheet of the EU. They will calculate your global balance sheet and they will put 4% of the total profit of last year. That could be the fine if they find the breach in the GDPR. Think about the organizations which is having a big size. They are doing billions. There is their total asset, or some are having hundreds or thousands of the million. Then you cannot assume what is the 4% of it, and management understand this number, what it is. And when you will explain them properly what is the 4% of their last asset, what is the 4% of their last balance sheet, they will understand properly how important it is. Now, how you will do the data classification? So you have to define first the purpose of the data classification. Are you doing for GDPR? Are you doing for HIPAA? Are you doing to maintain the security profiles, and you want to implement an end-to-end solution for the business users so they can easily get the access? You want to improve the productivity, so they will get an automated identity and access management solution, and they can request the access, the people will approve it, and it will get automatically assigned to them. Then you have to first define what is your purpose, what is your business value you want to do with this classification. Then you have to define the scope. See, all the data is at two places only. One is your on-site, which is your data centers. Another one is off-site. That might be a cloud, that might be your storage area where you are storing the backup. So the data which is either on-site or off-site, you have, and we need to understand one more thing. Data could be in two formats. One is the structured and second is unstructured. So we have to first scope it, that what will be the environment and what data we are going to classify. Another thing is sensitivity level. The sensitivity level for something which is confidential for you may be less critical for me. That depends on my business. That depends on type of my business. So you have to classify and you have to define the sensitivity of the classification as per your business. For example, if we will talk about army, the confidentiality is the highest priority for them. But when we will talk about business, it is not. Business need availability and the right mix of confidentiality and integrity. Now, you have understood the difference in the business and in the government. You need to define your sensitivity levels, and after that, you need to discover your in-scope data. Once your sensitivity levels are defined, you will go and identify your in-scope data. Once your in-scope data is identified, then you will provide the data handling guidelines, because that is very much important. People are going to use your top secret, confidential, unclassified, classified, all the kind of data. You need to provide the data handling guidelines, otherwise you will have breach before it will actually get breached. So guys, now we have reached to the end of the data classification chapter. Hope you would have liked my video. If you have liked my video, please like, share and subscribe my channel. Also, please follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter. Thanks. Bye-bye. I will see you in the next video.